Here I'm presenting tonight the resistance to change from United States GAAP to IFRS. The United States GAAP is known as rules-based in the accounting standards. The International Financial Reporting Standards is known as principles-based, and it was born in Europe. And this is the topic that I developed for my dissertation work throughout my doctorate degree towards my doctorate in accounting. The points that we're going to cover in the presentation is the abstract, brief literature review, the outlook of 2015 IFRS global presences, conclusions and recommendations, and future research studies. The abstract. The study involved an in-depth examination of the technical similarities and differences between the United States GAAP and IFRS. And you guys may wonder why there is a resistance to change. At the end of the presentation, you guys can capture the importance of why there is an existing resistance to change from rules-based to principles-based. As of now, as you guys can tell, 138 countries have officially adopted IFRS as one singular accounting language. Well, the researcher selected a qualitative research method approach that involved triangulation of individual interviews and a focus group interview discussion. So what I did, I collected the data from individuals that are experts in the transition from USGAAP to IFRS, and they are professional accountants that deals with local and multinational corporations in Miami-Dade County. The focus group discussion provided a great advantage to the research study because it added a great added value of understanding this phenomenon in the accounting industry, that is the resistance to change from US GAAP to IFRS. The triangulation helped the researcher to increase validity and reduce subjectivity in understanding the resistance to change from one principle to the other. And any research that you conduct on your end, it's important to understand the value that you're adding to the research work that is provided, because from this research work, the whole purpose is to help promote the well-being of the economy of the United States from now within the next 5 years. As for example, multinational corporations that are American companies that are presently operating in the emerging economies market, such as Brazil, Russia, India, and China, they can be repatriated back to the US and at the same time repatriate earnings back to the US. By all means, when I mean repatriating earnings, meaning that the income that they have earned, specifically in the emerging economies market, they just simply have to file under US GAAP and IFRS the financial statements. So once we convert to IFRS, those multinational corporations can come back to the US and be able to file one singular application that is IFRS, and they don't have to file any longer US GAAP. The number of countries that have officially adopted IFRS as a singular accounting language are 138 countries. The SEC, the FASB, and the International Accounting Standard Board have determined that IFRS should be adopted optionally in the United States by 2016. The results suggest that IFRS should act as one accounting singular language, which will promote high transparency and a better economic position in the world financial market. On the other hand, future research should focus on understanding the cross-cultural psychological effects of the adoption of principles-based and the relevance of corporate social responsibility by reshaping economic and global political forces. The literature review. The literature review discussed 18 critical areas that explains the resistance to change from rules-based to principles-based. These 18 critical areas throughout the study that I conducted came up to be an interesting point because it just helped me to analyze more in depth what was the resistance to change from one accounting standard to the other accounting standard. The efficient market hypothesis was examined in the study and also helped me to evaluate from 2007 to 2009 the financial crisis as related directly to the comparability and transparency of IFRS. As you guys may know that the financial crisis was a big deal from a period from 2007 all the way to 2009, and then we had an economic recession. Empirical research studies suggest that IFRS could be classified as Anglo-Saxon, European, and emerging economies. Now, here is the statistical global outlook presence of IFRS. 94% of countries have a public commitment of adopting IFRS. That is translated to 138 countries worldwide. Number two, 83% already require the use of IFRS. $41 trillion is combined in gross domestic product due to the adoption of IFRS that represents more than a half of the worldwide GDP. 24 trillion non-European countries remains the single biggest IFRS jurisdiction, and 50% is less than 6 years its publication. So by all means, meaning that the position of adopting IFRS is beneficial to the US market because it will bring simplicity, relevance, practicality to not just the accountant student, but as well as to the certified public accountants and all other related professional accountants to the industry. Conclusions. Overall, several conclusions can be drawn from the study. Participants in Think 1 reported that the 2007-2008 financial crisis slowed down the convergence process from GAAP to IFRS. The United States, the researchers Steinbeck and Tang, 2014, stipulated that the adoption strategy that the US should adopt, same as Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina. Although, why the United States have taken a step back to adopt IFRS because of the adoption cost. And they have thought about, listen, you know, what we went through with Sarbanes-Oxley Act in 2001, Section 404 was very costly to us when we adopted Sarbanes-Oxley Act. So we do not want an additional cost value to our economy in the US due to the simplicity of bringing relevance and reliability to our financial statements by adopting IFRS. Participants in Think number 2 suggested that the taxonomy aspect under International Accounting Standard number 12 is not well understood by CPAs in the Anglo-Saxon market. Why is that phenomenon? Very simple, because the certified public accountants here in the US, they're not properly well trained under IFRS standards. Now, on the other hand, if you go to Europe, you go to Latin American market, you go to Asia, you go to Africa, you can tell the difference. Locals in these international communities understand their local accounting standard settings and at the same time understand the international financial reporting standards. Participants in theme number 3 revealed that GAAP is rules-based and IFRS are principles-based. The financial statement presentation under the two accounting standards are quite different. There are prohibitions under IFRS, such as the inventory method of LIFO, last in, first out. Now, under United States generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP, the three methods, the three inventory methods, such as FIFO, LIFO, and average cost method, it's permitted. Now, on the other hand, under IFRS, LIFO is prohibited, and the only inventory method that is allowed is first in, first out. And LIFO and average cost method is fully excluded. So that would put at disadvantage small enterprises here in the United States market. Participants in theme number 4 anticipated that universities should adjust their accounting curriculum. Why? Because we have to prepare our new accounting generation of students that are expected to graduate from the accounting schools. Now, once you graduate from the accounting school and you sit down for your CPA exam, there is one section completely about the International Financial Reporting Standard. So the whole intention to be able to bring multinational corporations back to the US is to be able to employ those individuals that understand GAAP and IFRS and are recently graduated from the accounting school and they want to transition into a better career in the Anglo-Saxon market. Now, accounting instructors should teach IFRS in a class for a period of 30 minutes because it's an adequate time to allow an introduction about the principles and standards here in the United States market. Now, as I mentioned before, IFRS is a requirement in the CPA exam. And I'm sure you guys in the future think about to sit down to take the CPA exam. You're like, all right, so let me get myself prepared, let me get involved with the IFRS and understand the formality aspect. What does it take to get to the next level? Now, the importance of training students nowadays with IFRS is because we're going to be educating America's future investors. And remember, our goal as one of top economies in the global market is to be able to attract more investors to invest in our country. Participants in theme number 5 indicated that IFRS have fewer investment regulations than GAAP. Now, you guys are investors from different countries and you guys want to come to the United States and invest in the New York Stock Exchange market. They're laying out rules and regulations. They're saying, no, your income should be tied to such title, such and such and such. But your goal as an investor is to be able to have relevance, transparency, clarity about your investment, future value. You don't care about the regulations. Regulations are good for the governance among society, but investors, they just want to invest the money, let that money grow, and to be able to expand and cooperate with the local economy system. So our goal to adopt IFRS is to be able to attract more capital investors in our capital market. And also, the SEC should adjust the ADR Form 20F because it would increase investor share disclosure equities requirement under IFRS. Participants in theme number 6 reported that acknowledging the similarities and differences that exist between the two standards is crucial to be able to move ahead in the adoption process from United States GAAP to IFRS. And again, this study sheds new light on the resistance to change from rules-based to principles-based. recommendations and future research. The focus on this qualitative phenomenological research study was discovering findings on the resistance to change from rules-based to principles-based in the US capital market. The data gathered in the study revealed expected and unexpected results on the convergency process in the United States. The researchers suggest that the following aspects should be considered for future studies in the convergency process. The first recommendation for future studies is to conduct a study that distinguishes and resolves the complex financial reporting taxonomy aspect under the two accounting standards. The second recommendation for future study is to conduct a quantitative study of implementation of IFRS in developing countries by critically analyzing the significance of principle-based uniformity, transparency, and high-quality standard financial reporting system compliance. And also, aligned with that, the position of CSR, corporate social responsibility, that cares about the economic, social stability, well-being of the financial market. And the third recommendation is to conduct a mixed method study because the world financial market has encountered two phenomena. The first phenomena is 120 countries have adopted IFRS or simply permitted the same. The second phenomenon, IFRS represents a universal accounting language, and according to LASME 2012 indicated that IFRS increased foreign direct investment. So the SEC, FASB, and International Accounting Standard Board should explore how the optional adoption of IFRS in the US market will attract more foreign direct investment. Final thoughts. This is the clear picture of the current adoption of IFRS. 138 countries have adopted IFRS, clearly in Europe, 42, Africa, 20, Middle East, 7, Asia, Oceania, 32, Americas, 37, in total 138. So in here you have the full disclosure, relevance, why is the importance of adopting IFRS. And again, when I began to study this phenomenon, when I visited India back in 2008. And I sat down and I thought about, well, globalization nowadays is current topic number one in the international market arena. So, as an auditor back then, I thought about, what about simplicity in the accounting that we practice in the US? Since globalization, we are commuting in one international market arena, why we don't simply speak one universal language, such as English, just to be able to communicate in one singular language. It's like when you guys travel to the emerging economies market, you guys gonna face the local accountants. They follow their local GAAPs, but they comply with IFRS. And let's say a multinational corporation in the United States is doing business, the subsidiary is doing business in China, and the headquarters is located in New York City. By the time that subsidiary needs to repatriate earnings back to the US, that subsidiary from the US needs to comply, number one, with the local accounting standard, that is IFRS, and at the same time they have to comply with USGAAP, and that would be double taxation, and the company would be discriminated because it would be taxed twice, and we're trying to eliminate that. That's why more countries in the global arena are willing to move towards this adoption of IFRS. References, any questions about the acceptance of IFRS in the United States market? Have you guys heard about this convergency process in the past? Or
No.
this is the first time that you guys being brought up to your attention what is presently going on out there in the market? Well, I can tell you as a professional accountant, and I'm not just simply as a professor, also I do advising for multinational corporations and enterprises that want to embark in the United States market. And I think if you guys, in a nutshell, understand what IFRS is all about, you guys have an added value on your curriculum, because then you can apply for those corporations, you can expand your horizons even more in the international market arena, and to be able to be more marketable because you hold the knowledge of the accounting system here in the US, and at the same time you understand the accounting system of IFRS that was born in England, in the European Union. Are there any other questions? What recommendations will you guys propose to the United States to have a better acceptance in the convergency process from rules-based to principles-based? Any suggestions that you guys would provide in terms of speaking one singular accounting language? The way I see it is as follows, in a very simple model. You guys come to the US, you guys have to learn English because here the primary language is English, it's not Spanish, it's not Portuguese, it's not Italian, so you have to be able to be proficient in English. So if multinational corporations are saying, listen, we're looking for quality, we're looking for transparency, we're looking for a way to navigate through the system at an easy pace with the accounting regulation, why we as professional accountants, we don't speak just one universal accounting language and bring more flexibility? It's like, in one hand, USGAAP is about 25,000 pages, USGAAP only in terms of rules and regulations. And on the other hand, IFRS is about 2,500 pages. Which one will you guys pick? Think about when you have to conduct an audit, since I have done in the past, I have to go through an extensive checklist of 200 questions that it will take you months to conclude that audit process. So, and again, I think the position of adopting IFRS will bring us in terms of globalization to be more flexible in the financial market, to attract more capital investors in our market, and number three, to be able to speak a singular accounting language. That would be my real conclusion about the study that I conducted in the resistance to change from United States GAAP to IFRS about a year ago. So that's what I conclude.
Is GAAP more restrictive than IFRS?
Yes, indeed. As for example, the United States GAAP, as of now, in terms of the inventory position, of course, offers advantages and disadvantages. But in terms of GAAP, would say, listen, would permit FIFO, LIFO, and average cost method. So it would bring, in terms of inventory method, more flexibility to companies. But on the other hand, IFRS says, no, we have to eliminate LIFO, average cost method, and just to have one inventory accounting method, and that's the big dilemma. And also it comes the lease accounting treatment. So the lease accounting treatment will come in line to this. Under GAAP, the lease accounting treatment holds more restrictions as well. So when it comes down to the specification of revenue recognition, lease accounting, and inventory method, only the two standards, there still exist discrepancies in the understanding of the two systems. But definitely, answering your question, GAAP to that extent is more strict than IFRS. And again, IFRS, the majority of the certified public accountants here in the US have remained resilient in the position of approving the adoption of IFRS is because this specific population of certified public accountants think that the adoption of IFRS is going to be the second end run in the United States capital market. But I just simply address one point to the accounting society out there. End run happened under GAAP. So what would make you think that would happen under IFRS? If GAAP, if we're gonna play devil's, if we're gonna bring this to question, if GAAP is such a well-established rules-based accounting system, don't get me wrong, it was established back in 1929 when the stock market crashed back then, why we would not permit the position of providing at least an optional adoption of IFRS as early 2016 of IFRS to companies here in the US, the top 50 or the top 100 or the top 500 publicly traded companies in the New York Stock Exchange market to say, you know what, you can do your accounting books under GAAP, but at the same time, you can adopt optionally IFRS and compare apple to apple and see throughout the course of your financial recording if you face any discrepancies. So, thank you very much. I appreciate it.